Welcome everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining. What's going on, Workforce? Brian here, and today we're doing a live reading of the Anthem 1.04 patch notes. It's going to be epic, I hope. Well, we're going to see what's going on. Hopefully, if there's time, I've got a meeting here in about an hour, and I want to go through the notes, and maybe we get to test some of these things out. Because while I've been kind of perusing the notes and getting prepared, I've been updating the game here on PC. So to start off, the key items, the legendary missions, the Elysian caches, and the loot changes with patch point 1.0.4 that is now live for you guys right now. So new features, legendary missions, allows you to replay critical path missions again in a much higher difficulty level. One mission will be available per day that has no limit on the number of times that can be completed. These missions offer new challenges and require team coordination to achieve victory. The Elysian caches. So you're going to earn Elysian keys by completing daily challenges. These keys can be used on the caches which appear at the end of each stronghold after the boss is defeated to unlock. So this unlocks vanity and crafting materials. Now, opening in a cache requires that each member of the expedition, opening the Elysian caches creates loots for each member of the expedition. There are 67 unique vanity unlocks available, including vinyls, victory poses, emotes, and arrivals. You will never get a duplicate vanity item. This is our first version of the rule set for Elysian caches in the game, and we'll look forward to your feedback and the data that they gather as we play. Now, loot changes. Now, chests now have a chance to drop additional items of crafting materials in strongholds, free play, and missions. They've added apex creatures which have a chance to drop additional loot similar to the changes made to chest. So this includes Ursics, Titans, Furies, and Luminaries. On GM1 difficulty and higher, stronghold bosses will now drop more loot with the chance at an additional masterwork and legendary items. Now, they've made some changes with NVIDIA. They've added support for NVIDIA highlights to capture screenshots and game clips automatically. So when you're visiting and viewing overlooks, defeating certain large creatures, performing multi-kills, defeating legendary creatures, discovering the tomb of legionaries, performing combos, and when a player is downed by enemies, and also defeating bosses. Now, PC settings, they've added a field of view sliders for the game: ground, zoomed, flight, swim, and pilot field of view. So you can adjust this on PC only. AFK timers, they've reduced the AFK auto kick timer from 10 minutes to 5 minutes. They've also added NVIDIA DLSS support. Support for deep learning super sampling is now available on NVIDIA RTX-based video cards. Regarding performance, they've improved the performance of gameplay effects that were updating or running often to reduce performance strain. So example includes things like the UI, weather, time of day, and level art with animated props. To the Forge can now be accessed via the main menu while you're in Fort Tarsis or the large bay, Fort Tarsis. There is no longer a loading screen when entering the Forge. So bugs and issues. Free play. Fixed an issue where the second pilot could enter the tomb of the Legionary quest before acquiring the quest. And they also fixed an issue of performance that could potentially drop in Rescue Sentinel world events with Outlaws. Strongholds, Heart of Rage. They fixed the party gather that was sending players back to the previous arena. They've fixed the fog walls blocking access to enemies. They've removed fog walls that could prevent players from progressing. They fixed issues where late joining players could spawn in lava in a down state. Temple of the Scar, they fixed issues with the fog walls that basically stop you from progressing. Tyrant Mine, door leading to the underground opens when the player first arrives now instead of waiting for all players to arrive. The Tyrant Mine, they fixed an exploit where you could double loot from the Swarm Tyrant. And General, they fixed issues with the strongholds were disappearing from the map and they could not be selected. So mission stuff, they've got Finding Old Friends, fixed waypoints. Imposter, they removed fog walls. The See in the Dark, fixed performance on Xbox One X, getting close to the Echo Lock. Matthias mission, fixed pathfinding and elements that get stuck behind a chest. They fixed cinematic freezing during the third DAX mission. What freelancers do, they fixed ammo drops popping in the world. Clarified objective text on how players collect the quorum. In Incursion, they fixed the number of voiceover issues, and they fixed a number of loot exploits in Matthias's legendary contracts. Now, in general, the respawn timer no longer resets after a revived attempt by another player is interrupted. In Fort Tarsis, they fixed an issue where the camera went under the terrain when getting a legendary contract from Matthias. In Fort Tarsis, they fixed an issue where the Commander Fool would appear in 2 locations at once. They reduced the length the NPC glance away from a player during conversations to save more focus on the player. The low health warning now correctly states low armor. Fixed grammatical issue with the Legion of Dawn library entry. The first Cypher journal entry has been moved to the Cypher section, and the audio canceled audio when a player cancels out of launching an expedition. So their gear and abilities. They fixed text for several masterwork items that cause incorrect percent values for ultimate charge. The functionality has not changed. So the Ranger Frag Grenade and the Interceptor Venom Spray. They fixed the text for the Forge and the statistics bar that were showing as status when they should say effect, and that's acid effect, ice effect, fire effect, electric effect. They fixed an issue where the spark beam visual effect could not be present when turning away from a player using it, and fixed masterwork gear so they now progress the uncommon, rare, epic changes of that gear. So the Javelin components. So the Marker Ruin and the Amulet of Winter Storm masterwork components should now correctly be applying their respective bonuses and have their corrected icons, text and icons should be functional. As a Storm, I'm very excited about that. Fixed an issue with the Mark Clarity Storm component showing a 0-second cooldown now correctly shows 1 second. And they fixed a text for Interceptor double-edged inscription component were made more clear by the effects. Increases all damage dealt by X% based off a reduction damage resistance by X%. They fixed text for several masterwork items that caused incorrect percent values for ultimate charge, and the functionality has not been changed. So the Badge of Devastation and the Emblem of Destruction. And they fixed an issue where the Ablate Shielding Masterwork Colossus component was not correctly granting an additional armor or shields noted in the text. This is updated by the player's stats, but may not be resolved for the UI stat bars component. Weapons! Yay! Fixed statistical bar for weapons of the Forge UI, where magazine size was incorrectly labeled clip size. Fixed an error where the Thunderbolt of Yevana's lightning damage wasn't scaling correctly for the Storm Javelin. Fixed text for Aerithana's Gambit Masterwork Relentless LMG to be more informative of effect, and the upgraded Relentless best balanced gun in the class detonates a combo explosion on prime targets in the area upon reloading. So Javelins. Adjusted an error with secondary player damage scaling. Combo status effects ultimates melee, where unequipped item slots were not identified correctly for damage scaling. Bring back our support components. Fixed an issue where ultimate charge 20 charge wasn't correctly being awarded to players when reviving a down teammate. Fixed an issue where weak point hit triggers were unintentionally countered or counted when hitting enemy shields. Fixed an issue where the amount of armor segments displayed in the player HUD was incorrect when compared to their actual armor values. This is only the UI half of the reported health bug. Fixed an issue where players could load into an expedition without having all of their inscription bonuses properly loaded. This would result in various problems, less shields, health, ammo, etc. on the Javelin. We believe this should be resolved, the non-UI aspect of the reported health bug problem, as this should now correctly load Javelin health shields. Fix the problem where a player could be more easily killed through the shields and armor when first entering the game for the first time on a new client build. And fixed an issue where swapping weapons at the start of the Storm Ultimate could give you a full health without using the ultimate charge. So creatures, they fixed an issue where the lightning effect and abilities would leave the shader effect on the Korok's creature unintentionally. Fixed an issue where defeated creatures would sometimes go back into idle ragdoll positions unintentionally. An additional reduction in tuning of health of the monitor boss fight in the Heart of Rage stronghold. So inscription time. Corrected several inscriptions where the magazine size referred to as clip and fixed to say magazine or mag. The hipfire inscription bonuses will no longer be applied to sniper rifles. The support luck inscription has its text changed to X% luck. The weapon reload stat inscription is now correctly applying the player weapons and has been corrected. Fixed text based on blast damage inscription no longer includes weapon, and the text more clearly convey that applies to all blast damage, not just weapons. The text shield for the refresh and shield delay inscriptions were incorrectly swapped on items and have been corrected. These inscriptions will now reflect the intended effect, so delay and refresh. Then 1% or the pistol percent ammo inscription has been updated and now specifically reference heavy pistol percent ammo. And they fixed a number of issues that could cause the game to crash. Players can now junk items much faster. Yay! Daily, weekly, monthly interaction points now directly link the player Korok's entry. Fixed a number of issues that would cause players to be unable to interact with objects that were players. Match consumables now sort by rarity, then alphabetically, and quick play instances will no longer be allowed to spawn into a mission older than 15 minutes. Fixed an issue where a small number of players could not craft items that would continue to receive common, white, and uncommon green drops after hitting level 30. Let's talk about our features. Masterwork changes. Double the rate at which Masterwork gear and multiple charges retain charges. Ranger, the Venom Darts, Colossus Railgun, Interceptor Cluster Mine, Storm, Ice Storm, and Storm Lightning Ball, or Ball Lightning. Fixed several exploits related to Masterwork and Legendary drops that were allowing unintended drop rates when a player is downed. Added a new audio effect when a Masterwork Legendary item drops in game. I'm actually very excited about that. So Colossus components, the Ablate Shielding increases the buff to 40% for 10 seconds. Grand Entrance improved the ability to reliably trigger the heavy impacts on air melee slams. Reinforced Hull increases buff to 33%, was 20%, and removed its cooldown. Shock Treatment was hitting enemy with Ordnance Launcher abilities temporarily lowers thruster heat buildup by 30% for 5 seconds. Now, taking damage increases all damage by 8% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 10 times. Is that 80%? Like if it's stacked 10 times? That's insane. Stalwart's Badge. The shield break increases the ability damage by 40% for 5 seconds. Now, when we hit the status effect, increase all gear damage by 40% for 10 seconds. Synchronized Frame, change to hitting an enemy by from defeating an enemy. So hitting them. Okay, that makes sense. Now on gear for the Colossus, Fist of the Crucible was Victor's advantage defeating an enemy increased flamethrower damage by 30% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Now Striker advantage, hitting an enemy increases flamethrower damage by 12% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 10. So Best Defense increases base damage by 25%. Black Powder increases base damage by 25%, cooldown reduced to 1 second and was 4 seconds. Solvent Green increased base damage by 40%, and Titan's Hail was upgraded Burst Mortar, Special Shields, burst across the wide area. Burst Mortar can now trigger explosive combos. Now, upgraded Burst Mortar, Special Shells, burst across wide area, creates a large physical explosion per each enemy hit. For the Interceptor, man, we're only halfway done. Interceptor components. The survival algorithm increased to 40% for 10 seconds, was 20%. Talisman of Power increased to 60% from 50% and also increased 5 seconds in duration. The Conductive Lattice performed a small melee hit streak 3. Now as melee hits detonate an electric explosion and can occur every 2 seconds. So the Vengeance Matrix, all damage is increased by 25% for 5 seconds when the suit health declines. It is now on low armor, damage taken is reduced by 50% for 10 seconds. Way of the Salvage is increased by 40% for 10 seconds from 40% from 5 seconds. So that's a 5% increase, a 5 second increase. Way of the Swift increased 60% for 10 seconds from 50% and 5 seconds. Way of the Bold increased to 40% armor restored from 20, and Way of Integration increased from 30% for 10 seconds up from 5 seconds. So the Interceptor gear, the Caraph's Talon increased base kick damage by 200%, removed cooldown, increased to 50% armor restored. Neri's Charge increased base damage by 25% and removed the cooldown. The Serpent's Veil increased base damage by 35%. The charge to trigger on melee hit from a melee kill. So hit to kill, that's a nice little difference. The Shadow's Claw, Wraith Strike instantly recharges the small kill streak 2. Now is launches 2 Wraith projectiles that seek out enemies. And Absolute Zero, remove the requirement from being above the target to increasing explosion damage. On to the Ranger. The Ranger components, Tactical Advantage. It was increase the engine heat threshold, max stamina by 35%. Weak point hits lower thruster, heat buildup by 10 to 5. Now it is increase engine heat threshold, max stamina by 50%. The weak point hits lower thruster, heat buildup by 80% for 10 seconds. That's a big difference. Now the Badge of Devastation, was increased the assault launcher by 15%, performing a hit streak 10 will instantly add 1% ultimate charge. Now it's increased the assault launcher by 30%, performing a large hit streak 10 will instantly add 3% ultimate charge. That's dramatic there. I mean, when you really break down the numbers. Now Victor's Resolve was increased blast damage by 50% and decreases impact damage by 20%, performing a small multi-kill 3, instantly restores 25% armor. Now it is still 50 and it is still 20, but you only have to hit the multi-hit, small multi-hit and not multi-kill to 2, so thus in returning 25% of the armor. Second wind was defensive bulwark, was increased all gun damage by 25% on low health, increases gun damage by 25 for 10. Now increases all gun damage by 25% on low health, increases gun damage by 60% for 10 seconds. So elemental ops was increases fire damage and max heat capacity by 20% and fire resistance by 20%. Now it increases the fire damage and max heat capacity by 50 and fire resistance by 50 on a hit streak, 5 in this case, applies acid to the target. Combined arms, increase grenade damage by 5%. This is what it was. Defeating an enemy with an assault launcher gear, increase grenade gear damage by 60% for 5. Now it increases the grenade damage by 60%. Hitting an enemy with an assault launcher gear increases grenade gear damage by 60% for 10 seconds. Airborne advantage. So it was increase the impact damage by 35% and decreases blast damage by 35%. Hovering increases all resistance by 10. Now it is increase the impact damage by 50 and decreases blast damage by 20, and hovering increases all resistance by 25%. Then we've got tip of the spear. Increases combo, or used to increase combo damage by 50. Performing combos restores 40% of armor to nearby allies. It is now increases combo damage by 60. Performing a combo restores 40% armor to nearby allies. Now, General's favor was increases assault launcher recharged by 35%. Defeating an enemy with melee increases grenade damage by 50% for 10 seconds. Now it increases grenade recharge by 40%. Hitting an enemy with melee increases grenade damage by 45% for 10 seconds. Vanguard's badge was increased melee damage by 30% and electric effects by 30%. Performing melee kill restores 20% shields. Now it's increases melee damage by 40% and electric effects by 40%. Performing a hit restores 40% shields. That's insane. So now we're on to the Ranger gear. Argo's Mace, increased base damage by 25%. The Avenger's Boon, increased melee damage by 210% for 20 seconds, so it was 110 for 20. Cold-Blooded, changed on hit, increases melee damage by 235% for 10 seconds, and it was 135% when freezing enemies before. So that's just increase on hit. That's amazing. Ember's Lance, increases explosion damage. The explosive blast, chance on hit and removed to the cooldown, was on uniting enemies. Grand Opening was upgraded Seeker Grenade, splits into Seeking Submulations, Ambitious Fury, defeating enemies from above, grants 75% increased weapon damage for 20 seconds. So it is now upgraded Seeker Grenade, splits into Seeking Submunitions. Striker Fury, hitting enemies grants 60% weapon damage for 20 seconds. So it looks like they got a little nerf there. Recurring Vengeance was upgraded Seeking Missile, combo effect impact. After defeating an enemy, regain 100% charge, can occur once every 7.5 seconds. Now, upgraded Seeking Missile, combo effect impact, detonating a combo, it grants 100% charge. So apparently they removed can occur once every 7.5 seconds. The Gambit increases damage of ice explosions. All right, now let's jump into the Storm. So Storm components. Amulet of Winter increases to 30% for 20 seconds. Was 20% for 20 seconds. So in the Mark of Clarity, increases to 40% armor restored with no cooldown. Was 20% with a 10 second cooldown. Marker Ruin. It was increases fire damage and fire effect while the blast seal recharges. Focus seal damage increases by 40% for 20 seconds. Now increases fire damage and fire effect. After applying a status effect, increases fire damage by 50% for 10 seconds. So shorter, but more powerful. And yes, I do believe the servers are down, Fractal, just FYI. They should be up pretty soon, actually. Mark of Wrath. Increases gear damage and lower gear recharge rate. While Focus Seal recharges, blast seal damage is increased by 50% for 5. It is now increases gear damage and lowers its recharge rate. Detonating a combo causes large electrical explosions. The Token of Darling was increases elemental damage and it decreases physical damage. A shield break increases seal damage by 20% for 20 seconds. Now it increases elemental damage and decreases physical damage on shield break, instantly recharging all gear. The Token of the Master increases up to 60% for 10 seconds, was 60% for 5 seconds. And Token of the Pupil increases to 60% for 10 seconds, was 60% for 5 seconds. Tome of Precision was increases electrical damage and electrical effect. Sniper Rifle weak point kills increased electric damage by 60% for 5. Now it is increased electric damage and electric effect. Defeating an enemy increases the elemental damage by 40% for 10 seconds. And Vanguard's token increased to 40% for 10 seconds, so it was 10% for 20 seconds. So cut in half, but more than doubled in the percentage there. Now, regarding the Storm gear, Hailstorm's Renewal removed requirement for being above the target, increased base damage by 25%. Seal of the Open Mind removed requirement for being above the target, now permanently has 2 charges. Venomous Blast, or Blaze, increases base damage by 50%, changed from every 3rd hit to every 3rd consecutive hit. Winter's Wrath increased base number of charges and recharge rate. 10,000 Suns was upgraded Burning Orb, combo effect chain Striker's Wrath. After hitting an enemy, gain 5% increased damage for 5 seconds, stacking up to 20. Now, upgraded Burning Orb, combo effect chain Striker's Wrath. After hitting an enemy, gain 10% increased damage for 10 seconds, stacking up to 10 times. And Black Eyes, change to hitting an enemy freezes nearby creatures. Was defeating an enemy, note must sustain the beam on a single creature for the duration of the ability. So inscriptions, as part of our effort to improve inscription ease and the use of inscriptions, values now have the plus-minus value at the beginning of the state line rather than after the effect text. For example, supply plus percent drop rate now reads as plus percent supply drop. Okay, supply, got it. They moved the supply to after the percentage. Got it. This has been applied to all inscriptions. Components. Ranger basic components. Crossed Arms basic Ranger component now increases blast damage by 35% and reduces impact damage by 15%. So this was from 50 to and 20. Thermal regulator based Ranger component now increases fire damage and max heat capacity by 25%. This was 20. Grenade augment basic Ranger component now increases grenade damage by 35% and it was 5%. Convergence core basic Ranger component now reduces blast damage by 15% and it was 35%. Grenadier inscription basic Ranger component now correctly reduces cooldown of Ranger grenades and text and is updated to reflect this. The Grenadier inscription basic Ranger component was reduced from 35% cooldown reduction to 30% cooldown reduction. I'm going to take a second to get some water. That's why we're doing this live. Like my throat's like, okay. Midnight, I'm right there with you. I'm looking forward to playing some tonight. Universal components. The special arm component now only affects heavy pistols and grenade launchers, and the machine pistol ammo component now also affects autocannons, and the name has been changed to rapid arms. Previously added universal components from patch 1.03. Symbolic Surge increases javelin armor by a large amount, increases all damage by 50% for 10 seconds when picking up a repair pack. Soften Blows increases javelin shield by a large amount, increasing damage resistance by 75% for 5 seconds when shields run out. Thermocooling increases the javelin's heat capacity to allow the javelin to fly more effectively, reduces time you stay overheated significantly. Rejuvenating Ammo increases reserve ammo for all equipped guns, replenishes armor by 20% when picking up an ammo pack. And Emergency Power, all inscribed components that augment Javelin's ultimate gear and increase damage. Ultimate meter fills instantly when armor is critically damaged. Can occur once every 120 seconds. That Emergency Power is insane right there. Like, on the 120 second cooldown, yes. But that means like you can kind of go kamikaze a little bit and then you hit critical, pop your ultimate if it isn't ready to go. Added brand new Universal Masterwork components as of 1.04. So Bloodlust, this inscribed component that increases melee weapon damage, increases melee damage by 75% for 10 seconds when killing an enemy using a melee. Fantastic for Interceptor. All of them, but Interceptor specifically. Acid Slugs adds specialized storage for enhanced shotgun ammunition and increases damage. Hitting 7 shotgun shots in a single burst applies acid on the target. What they mean by shots is by obviously the pellet in this case. So hitting at least 7 of those is going to get a single burst of acid on the target. Giant Slayer adds specialized storage for enhanced marksman rifle ammunition, increases damage, increases weight point damage by 50%, and after the consecutive marksman rifle hit streak. Focus Freeze adds specialized storage for enhanced light machine gun ammunition and increases damage on a consecutive LMG hit streak 10. Shots freeze the target. Pretty cool. Feedback loop adds specialized storage for enhanced assault rifle ammunition and increases damage, increasing damage resistance by 50% for 10 seconds when firing the last shot of the assault rifle magazine. Gear updated the Interceptor Race Strike gear text to match the new functionality. Interceptor projects a ghost of itself that can warp up to X targets. Active auras apply to all targets struck. Weapons. Reduce the weapon reload times by speeding up the reload animations for the Colossus heavy weapons, autocannons, and grenade launchers. Javelins. Is this the last? Okay. Whew, man, this has been massive. The javelins. Interceptor melee can now execute multiple melee attacks with a single held input. Interceptor can now detonate combos even if they have the RF currently active. This allows the Interceptor to detonate the combo and do extra combo damage without having to wait for the aura to expire. In addition, detonating a combo will refresh the duration of the currently active aura, regardless of the primal and the detonating for the creature. For example, if you have the ice aura active and you detonate a creature primed with acid, it will refresh the duration of your ice aura. Increasing the max stamina thruster meter for all javelins by 20%. I have actually a personal issue with this. I wish they gave us a way to unlock that additional 20%, like pilot perks or various things. Like, okay, you've gained all this extra experience, and you can do that. You can choose to invest those points that way. Now, I get why they're doing it here. Hopefully, long-term health of the game, that all these quality of life and different things that you can do are something that they give us the ability to invest in. They reduce the base overheat duration by all javelins by 20%. Fire status effects on players no longer instantly overheats the javelin, but instead starts to quickly build up until overheating. Adding new audio for thrusters failing to ignite when frozen by an enemy creature. Improved auto notification for when javelin ultimate ability is ready, and added the ability to enter hover underwater. Wow. All right. That is the epicness of the patch notes. There is a lot of information here, guys. I will include a link in the description of this video when it goes up here on YouTube here in a little bit. Patch 4.0 or 1.04 is live. The server should be coming up here in a little bit. But without further ado, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.